since the coup on the 1st of February, the Assistance Association for Political Prisoners has been tracking the number of people who have been arrested for resisting the coup. And here you can see that the numbers are rising. At the moment, we have 521 people in detention, and many of these are politicians, elected members of parliament, civil society leaders, civil disobedience movement activists, as well as celebrities and members of the media. What is important to note is if you look at this map, the largest number of people who were arrested for peacefully expressing their opposition to the coup were actually people in the smaller ethnic nationality townships. So, for example, in Kachin State, 60 people as of February, in the first 2 weeks since the coup, 60 people were arrested in Kachin State compared to 44 arrested in the much larger and much more populous Yangon. So we are starting to see a pattern here, and you will find that the violent reactions to these protests tend to be more intense in ethnic nationality areas which are already affected by long-term conflict. And you can see here that in this map, all the townships in the country marked in red, there has been some act of resistance following the principle of satyagraha, where people have peacefully protested, and these protests, these forms of resistance, have also been joined by senior public servants, as it has been determined that this coup is not even legal under the military drafted Constitution of 2008. So I hope this will give you a little bit more of an understanding of why we are here, that even as we are looking at this massive and exciting and inspiring youth-led movement against the military dictatorship, this new manifestation of military dictatorship, we have to understand that the ones who are taking the biggest risks are people who are protesting in the ethnic nationality areas. And these communities have been struggling for decades against what amounts to a military occupation at various points in their history, which featured atrocity crimes. And we hope that our speakers this evening, and we have a very exciting list of speakers, will give you an understanding, a deeper understanding of the long-running questions that we hope this new wave of activism will also address. First up, our first speaker is Moneli. And Moneli has worked for the Kachin Women's Association for 18 years and has previously been its former general secretary. She's currently an advocacy officer and spokesperson for the organization. Kachin Women's Organization of Thailand has amazing reputation for the work that they have done on women, peace, and security. And Moneli has worked with Kachin women's communities at the grassroots level in Burma and Thailand to respond to social and economic issues and the fight for the ability to participate in decision-making at all levels. So I'm going to actually invite Moneli to share with us her reading of the situation and understanding that in addition to her work on women, peace and security, she's also part of the Transitional Justice Network in Asia the Network for Human Rights Documentation Burma, and is a member of the advisory board of the Women's League of Burma, the most notable umbrella organization for women engaged in the human rights movement. Over to you, Monelli.
Thank you so much, Debbie. And my name is Monelli again. Yes, every of you already know about what happened in our country, in Burma. That is after several weeks of tension between the elected government led by NLD and the Burmese military, security forces began detaining key leaders of governments. In the early hours of February 1st, this year, military personnel began occupy government building and also cutting off telecommunication and arresting elected member of parliament. So we can see that it is very clear 2008 constitution is give a lot of power to military. So that's why this, according to that 2008 constitution, every time, every night, every day, this kind of the military coup can happen in Burma. So uh, so it is also seem like before it is seem like red and green conflict happen in Burma, but it is really dangerous for our future in Burma. It is we can say that it is very based on our past experience. So we are really worried for our future in Burma. So now that is already nationwide demonstration happen in more than 300 township. And also our common goal is to destroy the military power and against the military dictatorship. It is our big common goal to doing this kind of demonstrations and area, including the ethnic areas. So current military regimes, under that military regimes, there is a lot of human rights violation happen, including in Kachin and also the whole country. So it is terrible situation happen. And at the same time, the military regime is released fake news via the Myanmar TV and TV channel. And also many people, especially in the young people, are taking arrest in the nighttime, and including who are involved in the CDM movement. So now every night, every day, our people are worried for their future, and at the same time, they also raise their voices by doing the demonstration, uprising, and raising their voice to reach the community, international community, and neighbor country, or to all of the people from the in the war. So every day, every night, the military and police are come and threaten to the civilians, and also they are doing the crackdown, the demonstration, that is by using police force, and also they are just doing in the nighttime for operating to take arrest and also make violence to the people. So that's why the people from Burma cannot sleep well in that nighttime. So now is what happened. We cannot imagine. There is a terrible situation happen in our country, including in the Kachin area. So on 17th of February, there is also some kind of the very terrible situation happened in the railway station in Mandalay. The police and also military come, the soldier come to the railway station, and also the shooting the gun and to arrest the officer, because most of the staff and officer are involved in the movement, CDM, this movement. So there is also one kind of they are intentionally, that is one of the, transportation to connect to the Kachin state. So that's why they have, they have to sending a soldier and also the Russian to the Kachin area. So it is next day they are also using this kind of the force to, sending their soldier and Russian to the Kachin area. So we really worry for, the people from Kachin state, because it will be a big, the fighting or conflict will coming, and also a lot of human rights violation will be coming. It is, we can say that according to our past experience. And on other hand, there is also ongoing the conflict and fighting between the ethnic armed groups and Burma militaries, because they are sending more troops at the ethnic area, including the Kachin state, Kachin areas, and they are fighting between the EAO and the military, even the the NCA signatory EAO groups. So that's why in the ethnic area there is increasing the IDP number, and also continue human rights violation and cases happen that committed by the military. So when we seeing on that continued conflict and the fighting happen in ethnic area, there's ongoing the human rights violation happening, and also war crimes and crimes against humanity happening, and also especially there is the women's are not very safe in that conflict area. So a lot of sexual violence cases happen, and also the IDP situation is also very difficult because of a lot of the funding are cutting into support to the IDP, and at the same time the military also blocked to support the food and some kind of the support, especially for the IDP. So we and another issue, another big problem is natural resources. That is also very linked to continue, conflict happen in the Kachin area, because these natural resources is only get benefit to the the military. So that's why, because of this natural resources is that grabbing by the military, so they are just more and more power, especially in Kachin, in Pagan and Danai area. So at the same time, when we are talking about this situation, we can also look back to the peace process, like so-called peace process. Before Debbie already give some presentation about the, and transforming the democratic transforming, something like that. So it is sure we can say that is just waste money, a lot of money they already using in that so-called peace process, because the military and also the some leader are not really sincerely on that peace process, and also they are not willing to fulfill of the ethnic equality, and not really want to support to the ethnic right. So that's why it is also, a big problem happen. However, they are trying to doing the peace process, and also doing the, under that NCA process. So we cannot get this peace. And under that 2008 constitution, it is really dangerous for the people, especially for the ethnic people. So we can look to our ethnic women's. The situation of ethnic women's is also really difficulty and really dangerous. So we have no city place, especially in the conflict areas. So as for me and our ethnic women's life in Burma, we are struggle for democracy. At the same time, we are also fighting for ethnic equality, ethnic right, and also we are also fighting for our women human right. So that's why we are really tired for doing this all things. So here I also want to share about the the root cause of civil war happened in our country. So all of you already aware about the first peace agreement. We call that Panglong Agreement that was signed in 1947. That is led by the Aung San. So that's why this, according to that, based on this Panglong Agreement, we formed these federal unions. So there is really support for ethnic equality and to form as a federalism and all of this freedom on everything democratic system is already involved in that Panglong Agreement, but the central government never follow and never implementing on that agreement. So that's why all of the ethnic people are holding their arm and or start to fight for their right and for the self-determination, including Gachin people also holding the arm for fighting and for our fighting for our right. So so that's why there is one of the big root cause of the civil war, long civil war happening in the country. We can also say the most longest civil war happened in the world. So the another things, military coup in 1962. There is also the first military coup happened in Burma. So that's why conflict, ongoing conflict and long civil war happened in our country in Burma. So in that situation, every military coup is we see that the same pattern and same impunity. So it is really dangerous for the people. So current military coup will have the deepest impact on those who are already marginalized due to the decades of civil war and ongoing human rights violation that committed by the Burmese military before the coup. So here I also want to say humanitarian aid must be closely monitored to ensure that it benefit the conflict affected ethnic community and not the military. So here we also want to add to the international community and all of our friends to support Burma to establish a federal democratic union that grant self-determination and ensuring a long-term sustainable peace, ethnic equality, and protection of human rights for all people in Burma. So, and continuous, I also want to some recommendation is not working with the military regimes and continuous support to the ethnic people and conflict the affected people and also the civilians through as a cross-border humanitarian aid supporting or yeah, that is also really affected to supporting to reach to the affected people, and also to bring military officer, including the Myanmar to ICC. It is also really important things to international accountability. So, and also we also want to call for sanction. That sanction should be more widely and also give pressure to release all political prisoner. So that is what I want to present tonight. If you have a question, or I'm happy to respond. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Muneli. Actually, I was going to keep the questions till the end, but Christina Fink has sent a message, a question which is very directed to you, Muneli. So I hope you don't mind that we ask up front. By the way, Bobby or tech support, I keep getting a message that the host has asked me to start my video. Is that something that I should be ignoring? Okay, I'm just going to continue. So, Muneli, Christina Fink asks, Kachin politician Ket Tai Nang has been named the Kachin State Administrative Council chairman by the regime. How do most Kachin people feel about that?
Yes, it is really good question. So as our Kachin people, from inside or outside Kachin people, we feel that not respect to that person, that kind of person who are just support to the military and not support to the grassroots people. Since the facing a government, he also working with USDP. So since then, all of our Gachin people are not totally not trust to him. Now is also we feel the same thing like that. So yeah, it is the same feeling. Now is more we not trust and we don't like this kind of the person.
Thank you so much, Manili. Thank you so much for that answer. For many people who have been watching Kachin State closely, the war between the Tatmadaw and the Kachin people had raged for several decades, and then there was a ceasefire in 1994. But in 2011, during the time of so-called democratic transition, the war in Kachin State resumed after a 17-year ceasefire. And when Muneli is talking about the peace process, it's very important to understand that the peace process has been corrupted because it has set aside some fundamental questions of the protection of civilians, ethnic equality. Barely a year after the war resumed in Kachin State in 2011, a new a new conflict was started up in Rakhine State, this time targeting the Rohingya community. With us this evening, we have a young Rohingya feminist, Yasmin Ullah, a social justice activist born in northern Rakhine State of Myanmar. She fled to Thailand with her family in 1995 and remained a refugee in Thailand until 2011, before she was able to move to Canada. She formerly served as the president of the Rohingya Human Rights Network and has worked tirelessly to advocate for the human rights of Rohingya communities and beyond with a strong feminist and intersectional lens. She's currently completing her undergraduate degree in political science, but besides that, has a very, very busy life doing advocacy and solidarity work across the world. Yasmin, now that we see the world gripped in this drama of what is unfolding in Burma, Myanmar, in the civil disobedience movement, resisting a military coup, which was illegal even under the military's own constitution. Where do Rohingya people fit in this call for federalism? Over to you, Yasmin.
Thank you very much, Debbie. That was a very kind introduction, and thank you for the organizers for inviting me to be part of this really, really important and timely event. I'm so grateful to be able to share my panel, not just with Debbie, who I love dearly, but also my co-panelists who have inspired me so much with their work and their tenacity in all of the fights for human rights and for the rights of their people. The one thing that I realized in all of this is there is a common thread within the plight of the Rohingya and the current suppression, the attempts to suppress the dissenting voices on the ground in Myanmar of the civil disobedience movement. And those common threads are psychological warfare, the nightly raids, as the previous speaker has already mentioned, the shooting of the water cannon or the dispersing of the crowd is a very, very beginning of what the military is capable of. And one thing is for certain, they have not changed their tactics for the last few decades, and they've stuck through with their own, current tactics, and the use of force have been the more prominent theme of how they try to emphasize their own control and their own power within the country. So the nightly raids are not surprising. Several months prior to various different campaigns of attack, especially in 2017, prior to the August 25th military crackdown on the Rohingya, there were continuous nightly raids in order to disorient people internally. There was also a lot of attacks that are routinely happening all over various different villages. There's a lot of extortion. There's a lot of intimidation and fear tactics that have been used on the people in the villages in order for them to feel completely uprooted as the crackdown actually begin. And as I witness all of this, I also, first of all, I feel extremely sad for what is happening in the country, knowing that I, as much as this country caused a lot of pain, became a source of pain for me, because a lot of people from my own community have had to leave, knowing that there is no safety net for my families that are remaining in Rakhine State to this day. Even at that, I realized that there is such an importance in people's realizing their will over the military's control, the military's grip for the past few decades. And as much as this is a really tragic and something that we hope didn't really happen, there's also a silver lining in all of this, in that people are starting to understand the need for us to actually unify beyond the perception of democratic transition that was basically the narrative that the NLD or the civilian government have actually pushed out, which was very, very much, repeated all over the world as something to justify the slow process or the violations that the military have committed all over the country. So it's been established that the military, there's so much duplicity with what the current military coup has been. There has been a lot of tactics on divide and rule by appeasing various different ethnic leaders, even including Rohingya, to actually agree to work with the military, just out of the sheer disillusionment of how the NLD had failed to address their issues. What happened on the ground in Rakhine State currently is relatively calm. There was a restoration of the internet, which didn't really happen for a very long time, almost a year long. And now they have 4G internet access. And unfortunately, the Arakan National Party actually, the Rakhine-led Arakan National Party had actually agreed to work with the military due to that disappointment of the NLD. And because of the pain of having so many people displaced and various other complex issues that are on the ground and have been sort of ignored by the NLD. So these tactics of fear and intimidation on the protesters that were used are just, the exact same, and they're just providing a parallel picture of what had happened to various other ethnic communities as well, as the military tried to take control of different areas. One thing that happened, which was a very interesting sight, was the state TV appearance of General Min Aung Hlaing. If you know anything about Myanmar, you probably understand that General Min Aung Hlaing was sort of a person behind the genocide that was committed against Rohingya. And he has the audacity to actually got on the state TV and made a plea to the international community, saying that he will actually prioritize the repatriation process of the Rohingya to be back in Rakhine State. He did not give us any details in what will happen, how it will happen, whether Rohingya will be able to get their homes back, or how would the reintegration process would look like. Rohingya can't really, we can't really go back as long as the genocidaires remain in power, and he's one of those people. It is completely absurd if the international community would believe any part of this plan, that the Rohingya will to go back and it will all be fine. But the fear is that Myanmar will work bilaterally with the Bangladeshi government without the consultation, without actually playing a more informed role in the kind of threat and risk that Rohingya would face going back home without these different figures that have played a huge role in orchestrating the genocide in 2017 and beyond, without holding them accountable in the first place. And they have been, not just orchestrating this in the Rakhine State against Rohingya and later on against Rakhine people, but they've done this all over the country. And genocide and mass atrocity should not be viewed in a very, very light sense. It should be taken really, really seriously in this way. And so pushing us back in any way, shape, or form will mean that you're pushing us right back into a tiger's den, and anything that happened after that will result in something truly tragic, if not immediately, perhaps in the long term. And one thing that he also said in that state appearance was that he continued to welcome the international investment. There is a strong economic incentives in all of his in all of the, not just General Min Aung Hlaing's plans, but in all of the military's attempts to realize their will in emphasizing their power, emphasizing their control in the economic realm, but also in the political structure of the country. Now, this is all done to maintain the status quo and repress the dissenting voices that are rising. And the one theme that is very prominent, and some of you might already be well aware of it, is the resource extractions and dispossession of the lands for accumulation, which is the most important reasoning when it comes to the systemic oppression, like the mass atrocity or genocide that happens all across the country. The dispossession part is done with one goal in mind, and it is to further the capitalist agenda, which removes the land rights from the people on the ground and transfer it to the military for them to auction the lands off for foreign investment most times, such as the Rohingya being expelled. And soon after that, there is the creation of Rakhine Special Economic Zone. And one of really, really good example of that is the Jokpyu port that extends the pipeline from Rakhine State right up to Kunming in Yunnan State in China. And there is a lot more of this trend going on across the country, in Shan, in Kachin, in various other states. Now, this brings us to what can be done, and the call for actions that I have for for the civil society groups that are tuning in, for the international community. First of all, no one should believe that the military is doing no harm to the ethnic communities or the general Myanmar public. No matter how enticing or persuasive General Min Aung Hlaing or his military instituted parliament may be now and in the future, there is particularly a lot of his recently nominated cabinet members that are extremely problematic. There are a lot of outwardly racist and supportive of genocide in these settings, and this shouldn't come as a surprise. But that's the whole the whole idea was that he will bring his own people, someone who will support his agenda, his plans and his vision. So these are the kind of people that he surrounds himself with, and that the right now the world is running on very, very neoliberal agenda, where there's a lot of emphasis on capitalist values and not a lot on the communal connection and the cultural relativism where we embrace diversity and celebrate the similarities that we have. Since what the military has done so far in all of the ethnic areas have to do with violence, with very clear trend of sexual and gender-based violence, what is the aim? What is the aim that the military has in terrorizing the civilians, especially those in ethnic areas? Again, it's dispossessions. So it is important for us to actually switch or shift our attempts to actually disempower the military's structure in general. Which can be done through, targeted sanctions. This is more broadly on the state level. Targeted sanctions, not just, towards the, not just something that can be imposed on the generals or the individual military personnel themselves, but on the military-owned companies. This will help divert some of the funding, some of the monetary value that the military has enjoyed, and something that has gone on to embolden the culture of impunity that is broadly just became extremely systemic and infested all aspects of the country. The other way that is really, really important for the civil society groups to do is, boycotting the military's own company, but also at the same time support and help the civil disobedience movement. And it should go on to help the people on the ground. Right now, the current situation is a lot of people are on strike from their work. A lot of people have lost their employment during COVID-19 and the mismanagement of the previous administration, including what is happening now, had put a lot of people out of work. And there is very, very little that people can do in order to earn income and to be able to take care of themselves. That is a very, very baseline, a very, very basic request that I would have, is to support them monetarily, support them to be able to live on a day-to-day basis. On top of that, a sustained effort to actually support the civil disobedience movement have to come from the outside. They have to feel like they're being supported, because this is going to be a long process. The coup will not, the military will not give up their power very easily. And as more and more people rise up, they will feel extremely threatened, and they will resort to any means possible to suppress the dissenting voices. So I hope that us in the civil society groups or us in the general public will actually not take our eyes off of the case in Myanmar. hoping that because this is a larger trend all across the globe, it's not just within Myanmar where democracy is being under risk. It is, a manifestation of a trend that's, global. And when we allow something to happen in one country, it generally, bleeds over to other parts of the world, because there is this sense of, people in the position of power being able to get away with their crimes and enjoying impunity. So targeted economic sanctions with, by the states, wherever you are, continue to push your government to do so, and more on the grassroots level, the complete boycott of the military-owned companies would be important. The last part is to please detach the civil disobedience movement from the attempts to actually get the NLD politicians released. They are completely different, and that's why, there is a need for us for the people on the ground to actually look into the federal democracy a little bit deeper, and that's a process that can happen once this coup is completely unsuccessful and fail. But there is a need for support for that narrative on the outside, because there are a few different states that have already sort of put out that narratives that there needs to be a release of the de facto leader, the NLD leader like Aung San Suu Kyi, and many more, knowing that the NLD will not be a silver bullet for the problems that are happening and have happened for the past few years in Myanmar is important, because they have failed to.
You're running out of time.
Yes, sorry. Like Debbie have said, they have failed to address a lot of the issues, a lot of the systemic issues. So it is important to remember that any changes that would happen will happen from people on the ground, not through the political movement on a government level. Thank you.
Thank you, Yasmin. So we are hearing similar messages from Muneli and Yasmin, that the regime is trying to continue this path of divide and rule to try and buy off ethnic participation and compliance with the coup, and the same clarion call for accountability and to ensure that there are targeted economic sanctions against military entities, and understanding that military aggression also accompanies economic exploitation and dispossession of ethnic communities on the ground. Now, our next speaker is also a very dear friend, Noa Kushi, a prominent Karen activist, someone who, through no choice of her own, ended up becoming a refugee because her community was attacked by the Burmese army. The Karen community has been essentially in a state of war for the past 6 decades, and more recently, 5,300 new refugees were displaced by attacks, despite the existence of a so-called peace agreement between Karen leaders and the Burmese Tatmadaw. Wakushi has had a very long and distinguished career, serving as General Secretary 1 of the Women's League of Burma. She represented Women's League of Burma and Karen Women's Organization, which she also led previously, at various UN forums and conferences, and also at the Global Summit to End Sexual Violence in Conflict hosted by the British government. She's testified in international parliaments, including the Canadian Parliament. But she's currently coordinator of the Karen Peace Support Network, the largest network of Karen community-based organizations representing more than 20 Karen civil society organizations from Burma. KPSN, the Karen Peace Support Network, documents the human rights and humanitarian situation in Karen State and has produced several reports, including The Nightmare Returns, Karen's hope for peace and stability dashed by Burma Army's actions. It's also important to note that earlier this week, KPSN called for the suspension of loans by the Asian Development Bank to Burma, Myanmar, because of the military coup. I'm going to hand over now to Akushi. She's going to present us with a PowerPoint presentation. For friends who have just joined us, you've joined the webinar United Against the Burma Army Ethnic Nationalities Call for Federalism, hosted by the South Asia Solidarity Forum, and we stand in solidarity with the struggles for peace and justice in South Asia, including the current farmers' struggle. Over to you, Akushi.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you to the organizer for organizing this kind of event and support the call of the ethnic people. So can you hear me well? Before I start, I would like to say that there are two struggles going on in Burma, and we can see clearly that the first one is the struggle for democracy, and the second one is the struggle for ethnic rights, equality, and self-determination. For example, the establishment of the Federal Democratic Union in Burma. So that's the two struggles that's going on in Burma. And in the past, we can say that most of the ethnic people see the National League for Democracy, NLD, as our alliance. And we also have our common goal. Our common goal was like to bring down the military dictatorship, and as well as to abolish the military drafted 2008 constitutions. And that was our common goal in the past. And we can see that like for the ethnic nationality, after NLD contested in the election, they feel like they have been abandoned, because in the past, we think that we will fight together, together against the military, and try to bring down the military together, as well as try to change the constitution together. And we can also, we know that even though NLD did not accept the 2008 constitution, they contested in the 2050 elections. And of course, like for them, in order to amend and change the constitution within the parliament. And they won the landslide victory in 2050 elections. And of course, we all know that NLD was unable to, amend or change these constitutions. And again, they also won the landslide victory in the November 8th, 2020. And we all know that on February 2021, the Burma Army military coup and started to arrest and detain the winning political parties. And now it's led into the nationwide demonstrations against the military coup in Burma. So we see that most of the demonstrators are calling for the rejections of the military coup and the release of Aung San Suu Kyi, including other political leaders, as well as restorations of democracy in Burma. That's the call that we see happening in Burma. But at the same time, we also see that the ethnic people also joining, it's like because the demonstration is nationwide and also joined by the ethnic nationalities, and the call for the ethnic nationalities is different. And the call is, of course, the common call is the end military dictatorship rule, the abolishment of the 2008 constitution, the establishment of the Federal Democratic Union, and immediately release the detained leaders. So let me tell you why the ethnic people are calling for the establishment of the Federal Union. Why not the democracy? So let me take you to the situation in the ethnic area. Even though the NLD won the elections and was in power, the ethnic people continue to suffer, and until today. And we also see that the war crimes against humanity, against the ethnic people, and genocide committed by the army against the ethnic people was under the NLD quasi-civilian government. And what the heartbroken for us was see that the military was, the Osasiji was at the ICC defending the military that committed crimes and war crimes, genocide against the ethnic people. For us, we think that that's also one of the, we have been fighting for so long to bring down this military dictatorship, and that's also one of the, the mechanism for us to be able to bring down the military dictatorship. But see the Aung San Suu Kyi defended the military at the ICJ was really heartbreaking, especially for the ethnic people, and then ethnic people feel abandoned again. And of course, the Burma Army offensive against ethnic people in our area also continue. And also, as I'm speaking today, we can see that over 63,000 newly displaced in Rakhine State in the past months. And the number is reached to over 200,000. And in current state alone, just a few days ago, because of the military, Burma military attacked, over 212 current villagers had to flee into the jungle, deeper into the jungle, because their villages have been shelled by mortar, and also because of the military activities, then they have to move deeper in the jungle, and the number is now up over 5,000, 5,300 recently displaced in the current state. So here's the IDP flee, flee into the jungle, and this is the picture of the woman. And this one is the IDP children, and on the right side is the children that continue school in the jungle, even though like the whiteboard is made of bamboo. And these children should be like, they also should have the rights same as other children, and they should be at the school and should be able to, eat good food and able to go to bed with full stomach like other children. But now they are ended up in the jungle, and this is because of the military regime and their actions. So our analysis on the current situation is the root cause of the crisis is the 2008 constitutions and the long-term military dictatorships. So the army used the 2008 constitution to take over the country and accused the NLD of the election fraud. And the current situation has clearly proven that the current half democracy, half military rule doesn't work, and working with the military doesn't work. And it's not worth protecting the military. So that it also should be a lesson learned for all of us, should be a lesson learned for the NLD, for the Aung San Suu Kyi, as well as everyone involved in this movement. And we see that even though, of course, we are calling for the release of all the political prisoners, and we see that even though if NLD return to power, and if it is still under 2008 constitutions, it will not work. And the military can take over power anytime. And this is why this needs to be changed. And this is why our common cause should be to publicly reject the coup and fail 2008 constitutions, and again demand the drawing up of a new federal democratic constitution. Number two should be a call on the military to stop offensive throughout the country, pull back their troops, and immediately release all political prisoners, including those who won't sit in the recent 2020 elections. And number three should be the suspend all political financial support to the military regime, and impose immediate targeted sanctions on the military-owned and controlled companies, as recommended by the UN fact-finding missions on Myanmar. And our last point is to resume, for the international community to resume adequate level of humanitarian aid to refugees in the camps on the Thai-Burma border, as well as provide humanitarian aid cross-border to the displaced community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wakushi. Those have been three very rich, very in-depth presentations, but also really amazing that there are so many messages and calls to action which are reinforcing each other across Kachin, Rohingya and Karen movements and feminists from these communities, these struggles. We have a lot. Thank you so much, Wakushi. That was amazing, and we can see that most of the presentations we've heard from Muneli from Kachin, Yasmin from Rohingya, and Wakushi from Karen are so mutually reinforcing, calling the analysis is so similar, calling for accountability to ensure that there is more than just a reversal of the coup, that this is bigger than Aung San Suu Kyi and the NLD. This is ultimately a movement to have a federal system that recognizes, respects, and protects everyone's human rights and rights to self-determination and equality. We have quite a few questions in the chat box. What I'm going to do, I would encourage our speakers to also choose which questions they want to address. I'll read them 3 at a time. Ativa Savita says, I would like to know what stand different ethnic armed groups are taking in the previous movement. If they can choose only one, who will they prefer to work with, Tatmadaw or NLD? Shoba is asking, is there solidarity and unity between different ethnic communities in Burma? Because very often autocratic regimes pitch one set of people against another in terms of caste, race, and ethnicity to weaken people's movements. And I think the divide and rule is very, very obvious in the Burma struggle. And would it be realistic Julie Smith asked, would it be realistic to think that the NLD will be in favor of self-determination for ethnic groups and a federal system if they could rule without the military? So those are the 3 questions that I will throw to you, and I will do it in the same order. You can decide which question you want to answer out of those 3, and I'll start with Muneli.
Yes, I will respond on the Ramundu. That is it is about for the federal constitution, is it right? So yes, we have since 2004-5. That is most of the the democracy movement group are working from the exile. And also most of the EAO arms groups are also based in the exile in the neighbor country, especially in the Thailand and Bangladesh and also in the India. So at that time, among that there's EAO and democracy movement group, including the as our movement and like WLB, Women Leagues of Burma, and youth groups are involved to drafting this federal constitution. Now we have already this kind of the drafting constitution already, and at the same time we also are drafting every state, like a Kachin state, a Karen state, and Chin state, something like that. We also drafting in a state level, constitution that is very linked to the federalism, federal, democratic for this federal democratic country. So that's why it is really important to bring and also raise this our drafting federal constitution to to change this 2008 constitution. So it will be really good for all of the ethnic people, because most of the ethnic people, including the democratic movement and also the women's groups and youth group, already give some kind of input in that to have this draft constitution. So that's why, a lot of energy we already, put in that drafting federal constitution. Yes.
Thanks, Moneli. Yasmin, is there any of these three? Please feel free to answer briefly any of these three questions.
I will answer to Christina. I'm not entirely sure who would be best placed in negotiating with the military regime. At this point, I can't really envision the moment that the military would be so weakened that it would be forced to negotiate with us. First of all, the military track record has been that they are going to use every mean possible, just as I said earlier, in order to suppress the voices that are contesting their ideas and their power, or the appearance of their power being threatened. So we are a bit of a long ways away from being able to be in the position to negotiate. But if any of that would happen, I would hope that it would be not to be ageist at all. This has nothing to do with that. But I believe that it's time to relinquish the power to self-determination, to recreate the country, to restructure it, to rid it of the power, of the existing power, be it the military regime or the previous civilian governments, which is a little bit tied to corruption, a lot of corruption that happened under their administration. To rid the country of those, we would need a new set of eyes completely. And I think that there could be a lot of hopes that to be placed in the young people to lead that discussion, at least for them to lead the way in basically creating a conversation on what they want to see in their country, rather than relying on the existing narratives on what democracy or what liberty or what freedom should look like. And I think that's an old discussion. It's already exhaustive. We need to move past it already. The need to hear young people should be because they will have to live with the consequence of that action. And so if there was any possibility at all for us to envision that at this moment, which we should, but we're sort of exhausted with the current coup and the struggle on a day-to-day basis, which is why it's important to support the people on the ground. If any of that happened at all, I would hope that the young people can lead it, and truly the power should be in their hands. Thank you.
Thanks, Yasmin. Wakushi, are there any of the questions in the chat box that you would like to answer?
Would it be realistic to think that energy would be fewer? Like we said that if NLD is if they could have done what the military are doing now, reserve seat for the ethnic nationality, ethnic armed group, and start working on the drafting of the federal constitutions. But now, of course, it will work working with the military regime. And but I think for me, I have not much hope, but of course, a lot of hope, encouragement, and inspired by the youth, the young people that are leading the demonstrations. And they are more open, more liberal, and more advanced. And of course, there are a lot of hopes for the next generations.
Thank you. So perhaps we need to actually see a shift in the politics where younger women from all the different ethnic nationalities can have a stronger voice and a place in the leadership of the country. I've been requested by our host at the South Asia Solidarity Forum to acknowledge Dr. Sandeep Pandey. He was supposed to speak at last week's forum but was not able to join because he was engaged at a farmers' protest in Unnao. Dr. Sandeep Pandey is the Raman Magsaysay awardee and activist. So please, sir, please, we would like to give you the floor for a few minutes so that you can express your solidarity. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Debbie. And I am really pleased to see these young women activists, raising their voice against the military dictatorship. I'm reminded of writing an article on Irom Sharmila when she was fasting against the Armed Forces Special Powers Act in Manipur. We had gone there to organize a 5-day solidarity fast in her support. She fasted for 16 years. She was not taking any food on her own. It used to be, put into her body through a rubber tube through her nose. And at that time, I had compared her with Aung San Suu Kyi, who was under house arrest. And we were very happy that, when she won the election and we thought the democratic government had been formed. But all those hopes have been dashed. And also there was certain disappointment with the role of Aung San Suu Kyi in not defending the Rohingya people. But anyway, I guess this is part of the politics. We don't know what her compulsions are. But we do hope that, democracy will return to Myanmar soon. And I see there's so much similarity between what is going on in Myanmar and in India. Although we have a democracy, but the nature of the government is very fast turning to autocratic. We have, the farmers' movement going on at this time, which gives us a lot of hope. But otherwise, a lot of things that were being described by Yasmin, for example, nightly raids and, house arrests and filing false cases, putting people in jail, torture and such things are going on in India. Number of our intellectuals are in jail at this time, on false cases. So, military is being given more importance, more spending on military. The state is using the security forces against people who are dissenting. So all this is very scary, and we stand in solidarity with the people of Myanmar as we fight our own struggle to save democracy and hopefully get rid of this right-wing government in power at New Delhi. We hope that together, all of us, including people from different other countries who have joined this webinar from Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and there are colleagues from India. So we hope that all of us together can work to make this area, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and also the world a better place to live in for everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sandeep Pandey. We are actually running a little bit over time, and there's still so many questions that remain to be answered. I just wanted to note that North Susan Hillary asked for recommendations for Korean people and other ethnicities on how to abolish the 2008 Constitution. My recommendation, North Susan Hillary, please join Wakushi at the Karen Peace Support Network, and you will know what to do. Raimondo Bultrini from La Repubblica newspaper, is there any specific common federalist platform for ethnic groups? Yes, there is. In fact, as Muneli mentioned, they had been organizing lots of workshops and strategy meetings and even discussions on drafting a truly federalist constitution even before the transition to the quasi-civilian government in 2011. The discussions on federalism have been going on for probably close to 30 years now. So it's not that people don't have a path or a plan, it's that they have been deliberately marginalized. Julie Smith wants to know if there is a list of military companies which can be targeted for boycott. Julie, Burma Campaign UK has a dirty list. You can find that very easily online. But also, the UN fact-finding mission issued a report in 2019, and that is an official UN document which describes military companies. I'm going to have to wrap up here and say thank you to everybody who joined us. Thank you to the 7 Facebook groups which are simultaneously streaming this session. I hope more groups will share it. Thank you to our friends and the expressions of solidarity and even solidarity plans, which Herman Kumara is already setting up with Bobby Ramakant even as we speak. Friends from Bangladesh, Pakistan, Palestine, Wales, Thailand, Sri Lanka, Germany, USA, Luxembourg, UK, India, and Japan that I am aware of. I think Camilla Buzzi is logging in from Norway. So this goes beyond South Asia solidarity. This is a global solidarity. Let's keep up the struggle. Let's keep on working together for social justice across the world. Thank you, everybody, and stay strong. And back to you, Shobha.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Nothing left to say. And once again, special thanks to Yasmin, Muneli, Vakushi, and of course, Debbie. So all power to the woman force, and may better times prevail. Thank you, and good night.